Tonight on Reporting Scotland. As the party faithful gather at the SNP Conference, the First Minister tells them the UK government is in chaos over Brexit. Figures suggest some teenagers with eating disorders are waiting far longer than others for treatment.
I would think to myself, OK, tomorrow I'm going to start eating more. I'm going to try and get better on my own. Like, I can do this, but it never worked.
Also in the programme, the EIS union warns that teachers could go on strike if they don't get a 10% pay rise. The recent warm weather has triggered an explosion of midges. It could be the worst year yet. And St Mirren welcome former Hibs manager Alan Stubbs as their new boss. They say he's a perfect fit for the club. Good evening. The First Minister has told BBC Scotland that the Conservatives will regret it if they vote next week to block the return of key EU powers to Holyrood. Speaking at the SNP Conference in Aberdeen, Nicola Sturgeon said it would prove that the Tories' commitment to Scottish self-government was skin deep. Ms Sturgeon also said that the row over private comments by the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson showed the UK government was in chaos. From Aberdeen, here's our political editor, Brian Taylor.
Here in Aberdeen, they're talking about the economy, Brexit and, of course, independence. But they're also talking about this man, Boris Johnson, and his privately taped views that his cabinet colleagues lack guts in Brexit talks.
Foreign Secretary, will there be resignations?
Nicola Sturgeon told me the Prime Minister needed guts to sack her Foreign Secretary.
I think it's shameful, and I can't understand why the Prime Minister still has him in her cabinet.
Delegates here know that MPs vote next week on the EU withdrawal bill. That includes plans for interim Westminster control over devolved powers like farming, returning from Brussels.
This will be a very significant step if the convention that has underpinned the workings of devolution is ripped up by the UK government next week, and I hope they don't do that. But if they do, then I think there will be implications of that for a while to come.
And you suspect the Conservatives would regret that ultimately if they take that step?
I think so. You know, many people in Scotland have long believed that the Scottish Conservatives' support for devolution is skin deep. They opposed the Scottish Parliament. They've tried to reconcile themselves to it because it's, I suppose, given them a forum over the past number of years. But when push comes to shove, are they prepared to stand up and defend the rights of the Scottish Parliament?
Nicola Sturgeon now has a new deputy.
Keith Brown, 55.2%, Julie Hepburn, 44.8%.
In the final count, it was fairly close, but still clear. As a minister, Keith Brown announced a fund to help Scottish exporters cope with Brexit. As the new deputy leader, he announced a scheme for widespread consultation on the party's plans for the economy under independence, including talks with business and the unions.
We are about growing our economy, investing in our future. And however people voted in the Brexit referendum, no one voted for the absolutely chaotic shambles that's unfolding, threatening jobs and livelihoods right across Scotland and, of course, the UK.
The plan drawn up by a commission for the party says build the population to grow the economy, tackle the deficit and keep the pound for at least 10 years. But on the fringe, one former nationalist MP said the plan was too timid and an independent Scotland would need its own currency.
You can't do what Scandinavia did, you can't do what New Zealand did if you don't have your own currency. And if we don't have our own currency, we are at the mercy of the banks. And it is the banks and the banking system in this UK, this warped banking system, that's one of the real causes of our underperformance, our underinvestment, and therefore our low productivity.
Tomorrow, Nicola Sturgeon will address the conference, arguing that the SNP and ultimately independence can offer hope to Scotland, by contrast with what she labels the despair of Brexit.
Well, Brian joins me now from Aberdeen. There's going to be many delegates, Brian, keen to hear about plans for Indy Ref 2. Did they learn any more today?
I mean, Sally, delegates at the SNP Conference are hoping that they're optimistic, they are looking forward, they yearn for independence and they detect something of a buzz in the grassroots. But there's a number of reasons why it isn't likely to be announced soon. One would be that the prospect of independence in Scotland, as far as the SNP are concerned, is predicated upon confidence, and confidence is shot to pieces as a consequence of Brexit. That is why Nicola Sturgeon has said she won't even contemplate the timing of a referendum until there's more clarity in Brexit. She says she'll look at that in the autumn. Do we expect it to be clarity in Brexit by the autumn? I think that's perhaps not a certainty. A second point is the question of this new growth commission that's been published by the party. They want to analyse that in detail. They want to talk about National Assembly debates over the summer, consult with the unions and with business. That's a process of preparing and deciding. And the third point is that if Nicola Sturgeon demanded the powers to hold a referendum now, it's likely that the Prime Minister would say no. There'd be no progress on that. Will people here be fretting? Well, they will. They want to go forward. But you know what? I think the vast bulk of the party will agree that it's right to be patient. They will know that Nicola Sturgeon doesn't want to hold a referendum. She wants to win one.
Brian Taylor in Aberdeen, thank you very much. A bid to have European judges decide if the UK can unilaterally halt Brexit has been thrown out by a Scottish judge. A group of pro-Remain politicians wanted the question referred to the European Court of Justice so there could be a definitive ruling. Lord Boyd said in his judgment at the Court of Session that the case couldn't be sent to Luxembourg as it was hypothetical. New figures suggest some teenagers with eating disorders are waiting far longer for treatment than others, depending on where they live. A leading psychiatrist has told BBC Scotland she feels guilty about the patchy treatment on offer. The Scottish Government says all teenagers with eating disorders are seen within its 18-week target. Katie Hunter reports.
Hey guys.
Elijah Holland is a video blogger, or vlogger.
I want to talk about 2 TV shows.
Her videos are often light-hearted, but not always.
I wanted to open up about my experience with anorexia.
22-year-old Elijah vlogs from her home in Straven, South Lanarkshire. She was diagnosed with anorexia when she was 18. Elijah says she waited 3 months from diagnosis to treatment.
I just felt stuck. I remember there were times where I would think to myself, okay, tomorrow I'm going to start eating more. I'm going to try and get better on my own. Like, I can do this, but it never worked. And I really did need that professional help.
We asked all 14 NHS boards how long under-19s waited between referral and treatment. 8 couldn't give us figures. For the rest, there's no standard method to record this data, so accurate comparisons are difficult. In Tayside, the average wait for child and adolescent mental health services was 6 days. Dumfries and Galloway said 2 teenagers waited an average of 62 days for treatment in adult services. The Borders, Forth Valley, Fife and Lothian were somewhere in between. Dr Jane Morris from the Royal College of Psychiatrists says the lack of data is maddening. Anorexia has the highest mortality rate of any psychiatric illness, but she says there are variations in the type of treatment young people receive.
I feel very guilty. I feel that we should be able to offer our patients the best that is available. And very often it's just an accident of which clinicians you have to have and what training they bring with them.
In Scotland, there's a generic 18-week waiting time target for all mental health conditions. But the NHS in Tayside follows English guidelines, which say children with eating disorders should be seen within 4 weeks. The Royal College of Psychiatrists says Scotland's services aren't robust enough to cope with shorter targets. But the charity BEAT wants reduced waiting times on the condition it doesn't compromise quality.
We certainly need to consider whether waiting times put pressures on clinicians and the demands that they already have. We also want to ensure that if someone is getting help fast and the waiting time is reduced, that it's the best, most quality and appropriate treatment.
Scotland's mental health minister says she expects the authorities to make sure they are delivering services that meet the needs of their areas, but waiting times are only part of the picture.
The major problem is that teenagers don't come forward early enough. when they have an eating disorder. So it's actually the period before that they're not going to their doctor early enough when there looks to be problems with an eating disorder.
But then when they do go to their doctor, some are having to wait 62 days for treatment. Do you think that's acceptable?
Well, we have the waiting time targets of 18 weeks. Most are seen within 10 weeks.
But in Elijah's opinion, that's not good enough.
The longer that people have to wait for treatment and professional help, the longer that, you know, their mental health can deteriorate even more within that time. Even within the space of like a week, once it starts, it just spirals out of control so quickly.
Elijah knows the therapy she received was crucial to her recovery.
Yeah, I believe you guys can do it, because if I can do it, you can do it.
She wants others to get the help they need as soon as they need it. Katie Hunter, reporting Scotland.
A man whose body was found at a nature reserve in Angus had been subjected to a sustained assault. 27-year-old Stephen Donaldson's body was found at the reserve near Kirriemuir early yesterday morning. Police say his attacker or attackers must be caught as quickly as possible.
My appeal today is to the public, you know, the walkers that use that road, the B951, or people that travel that road, cyclists. If you've seen anything suspicious in and around that particular car park at the nature reserve there, please come forward. Stephen has been the victim of a terrible attack, there is no doubt about that, and we need the public's help here to investigate this and get the answers that we need for Stephen's family.
The father of a teenager who died during a work experience placement has spoken of his anger after the man accused of killing his son was acquitted. Michael McLean died in hospital in August 2015 after he was found unconscious at an Aberdeenshire industrial cleaning firm. He had a broken neck and suffered a cardiac arrest. His colleague, Dean Reynolds, denied culpable homicide during a High Court trial in Aberdeen. Rebecca Curran reports.
Dean Reynolds leaves the High Court in Aberdeen cleared of killing a teenage colleague. A jury found the case against him not proven. Michael McLean died in hospital following the incident at an industrial cleaning firm in Inverurie in 2015. The 17-year-old was found unconscious in the drum of this spooler machine. He had a broken neck and a torn spinal cord. CCTV footage shows Dean Reynolds initially walking, then sprinting after finding Michael injured. He returned soon after with another worker to go to Michael's aid. The prosecution claimed Reynolds acted recklessly, with no regard for Michael's safety.
But the Defence Counsel claimed that this was a case of prosecution at all costs, and there was no evidence to support the theory that Reynolds had turned on the machine as a prank, knowing that Michael was inside.
Michael's father, Mark, also worked at the company and battled to resuscitate his son. Following the verdict, he spoke of his anger.
It's no the result I was expecting, especially with all the evidence against him. I mean, if he didn't do it, then what happened? Is Michael's life so significant? Does it mean nothing to anybody else? The jury can ask themselves what happened there if Dean didn't do it.
How do you feel now?
I'm angry, that's it.
The trial heard the cleaning firm involved, Denham McNamee, was previously fined £120,000 after admitting breaching health and safety guidelines over a failure to assess the risk Michael may have been exposed to. Rebecca Curran, reporting Scotland, Aberdeen.
Scotland's biggest teachers' union is warning that there'll be a ballot on strike action unless there's a pay deal. The EIS and other unions want a 10% rise. The Scottish Government's looking for a negotiated pay settlement. From the EIS conference in Dundee, here's our education correspondent, Jamie McIver.
Megan McCrossan and David Baxter are both teachers and they both want a big pay rise. They earn a good salary, £36,000 a year. But the value of their pay has been falling. Their annual rises haven't kept pace with rising prices.
36,000 is not a bad salary whatsoever, but year on year, because of inflation, we're actually experiencing almost pay cuts rather than the pay rises. That when it comes to bills and going for mortgages, buying property and things, it makes it very, very difficult.
The only way classroom teachers at the top of their pay scale could earn significantly more just now is to win promotion. It isn't for everyone.
A promoted post is an increase in bureaucracy, it's an increase in sort of like doing a lot of paperwork, dealing with colleagues, and I'm actually quite happy in the role that I do. I will continue to be doing it for the next 30 years.
In it, to win it, colleagues, solidarity.
Their union is campaigning for a big pay rise for all teachers, 10%, more than 3 times the offer currently on the table. If it doesn't get a significantly better one, it plans to ballot members on a strike.
The threat is a real one. We continue to seek negotiations with Scottish Government. We hope to reach a settlement, but we're very clear that if we fail to reach a negotiated settlement, we will be asking our members on the question of taking strike action.
Teachers' pay is negotiated by all the main teachers' unions, councils and the Scottish Government. The next meeting is due later this month.
I understand the pressures that the teaching profession are under in terms of the constraints of public sector pay. But having understood that position, we go into those negotiations in good faith to try to get to a resolution that addresses these issues and make sure that we've got strong foundations for the education of young people within Scotland.
A ballot and strike action now seems inevitable if there's no deal on pay. The earliest that ballot is likely to take place would be in the autumn. Jamie McIver, reporting Scotland, Dundee.
You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's just coming up to 7:15. A reminder of tonight's top story. As the party faithful gather at the SNP Conference, the First Minister tells them the UK government is in chaos over Brexit. And still to come, the warm weather has triggered an explosion of midges. It could be the worst year yet. Wearing the green, white and violet colours of the suffragette movement, women and girls across the UK will this weekend be marking the 100th anniversary of votes for women. It's hoped the processions in Edinburgh, Belfast, Cardiff and London will look like a flowing river of colour. Stephen Godden's been following preparations in Edinburgh.
An anthem fit for a march. On Sunday, Piper Louise Marshall will lead thousands through the streets of Edinburgh, a procession marking 100 years since women won the right to vote.
Do you know, I'm completely honoured to actually lead processions and representing all the young girls, women in Scotland, celebrating, commemorating all our Scottish suffragettes, all their bravery, their determination all those years ago, which eventually gave us the vote.
Green, white, violet, give women votes. The colours are important to what the organisers are billing a living artwork. Across Scotland, banners are being specially made. Here in Shetland, they've applied the finishing touches before making the journey to Edinburgh.
We're aware we're travelling the farthest, but we are so happy to do that. It's a very small thing to do to celebrate the fact that these amazing women 100 years ago fought and were tortured just to give us the right to be women and to be equals.
This was Princes Street in 1909, a rally that was an important moment for the suffrage movement in Scotland.
On Sunday, more than a century later, women will march while men are asked to turn out in support. An estimated 10,000 people covering the same ground through the city centre.
A section of Princes Street will be closed on a weekend that Edinburgh also hosts the charity Moonwalk and a Rolling Stones concert. Getting around promises to be challenging. What matters to those who march is following in the footsteps of history. Stephen Godden, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Pat Lally, the former council leader in Glasgow who also served as Lord Provost, has died at the age of 92. During Pat Lally's time in local government, Glasgow hosted the 1988 Garden Festival, became the European City of Culture in 1990 and the City of Architecture in 1999. He left Labour in 2003 and ran unsuccessfully for Holyrood on 3 occasions. His sons, Derek and Robert, described him as a passionate Glaswegian and a dedicated family man. The Mossmoran chemical plant in Fife is to be investigated after a serious flaring incident. Bright flames and black smoke were seen coming from the plant's main chimney during a 7-day incident last June. Nearby residents also complained of extreme noise and vibrations. The Scottish Environment Protection Agency and the Health and Safety Executive will carry out the joint investigation into the plant, which is operated by ExxonMobil Chemical and Shell UK. It began with a Japanese schoolboy who wanted to share his experience of autism. Now Naoki Higashida's best-selling book, written when he was only 13, has made it into a stage show by the National Theatre of Scotland. The Reason I Jump is being performed outdoors by a cast aged between 16 and 60 who all have experience of autism. Our arts correspondent Pauline McLean reports.
It's as far away from a theatre as you can get. But that, says the director of this new show about autism, is exactly what they're after.
Some autistic people have a bit of a problem with the theatre, not just autistic people, but feeling a bit restricted in the theatre, a bit trapped, darkened auditoria and not being in control of the rules. So we wanted to make a show that was very kind of free for people to wander around and discover in their own time and on their own terms.
The Reason I Jump is based on a book written by a Japanese schoolboy when he was only 13. Naoki Higashida's autism meant he didn't speak and had to type out his response on an alphabet board. He's since gone on to write a second book, which encourages people with autism to persevere. That's a message the cast of this show can understand. Aged from 16 to 60, they all have autism.
And it's teaching people to have that faith in themselves. And that's what I think is part of the message of this, particularly the young guys who, they're not going to be held back. They're going to show what they can do. Nobody's going to tell them they can't.
Boing, boing. That's a message this cast presents loud and clear. They can and they will. And they hope this show will make you think twice about people with autism.
We're mainly trying to get this message across to those who probably don't have much of a clue of what autism is, and perhaps for people who do have autism, maybe they'll get a much better idea on what it is and maybe understand themselves a bit better.
Living with autism can be a puzzling experience, but they hope audiences will step inside and learn some more. And the labyrinth they've created, it'll remain on site long after the show is over. Pauline McLean reporting, Scotland, Glasgow.
The new St Mirren manager, Alan Stubbs, is a fantastic fit for the Paisley club. That's the view of Chief Executive Tony Fitzpatrick, who says Stubbs was the standout candidate to replace Jack Ross, who recently left to join Sunderland. With more, here's Jane Lewis.
The £8, please.
The St Mirren club shop doing a brisk trade. On offer, the latest line in club merchandise.
So it's Shane getting you strip for the... That's it. Oh, brilliant.
And also the lowdown on today's big news.
No, it's a great appointment, as we said, so it'll take the club forward.
A new manager, and one that apparently ticks all the boxes.
He's somebody the fans will take to. He fits perfectly in with our philosophy at the club, promoting young players through the team. He's a fantastic coach, great man manager. You know, speaking to him already, he's got a great presence about him, and I think he's going to be really successful here.
This will be Alan Stubbs' second stint as a club manager here in Scotland. He managed Hibernian for 2 years from 2014, and his last act as the Easter Road boss won't be forgotten by Hibs fans in a hurry.
Alan Stubbs, who has guided Hibernian to the Scottish Cup.
After that triumph in 2016, Stubbs left for English side Rotherham, but was sacked after only 5 months. St Mirren say that blip in his managerial CV causes them no concern. But what are the fans thinking?
I mean, I look at what Stubbs did at Hibs, you know, the likes of McGinn, McGeer, Scott Allen, Darren McGregor, they're all still in that Hibs side, which was very successful relatively last season as well. So I think it's the recruitment side that I'm excited about. I want to see what you can do.
The fans saw success last season. Can the new manager build upon that? Jane Lewis, reporting Scotland.
Now, midges. A nippy May followed by a blazing June has brought an explosion of them. Experts say the numbers being recorded at the moment are up there with some of the highest readings they've ever had. Aileen Clark has been finding out what that means for those of us trying to enjoy the great outdoors, or in fact anything outdoors.
The sight and sound of a Scottish summer. This was Scott Sweeney's recent midgie-infested walk with his dog near Inverary. But a few million biting wee beasties hasn't put off those who love the challenge of the outdoors here. Many on the West Highland Way today, though, were bearing the scars when I caught up with them at Tyndrum.
We've been trying to stay in breezy bits and just trying to escape the worst of them.
You've still got bitten though, haven't you?
Yeah, quite a few times. I made the mistake of wearing shorts as well.
I got bitten all over my face. It doesn't matter what time of day you're out.
Look at the state of them.
Midges. Quite a lot of midges at Kinlochard and the Trossachs this week. You can understand why the experts tell us we are now in the midst of a midgie explosion.
Numbers of late have been as high as they have been for many a year that we've been recording them. Because it's suddenly become humid on the west coast, quite still, perfect conditions for midge emergence. They've suddenly just come out altogether.
Toast to the midge.
That from a far-travelled tourist whose attitude is, come on midgie, if you're tough enough.
We have much worse animals and reptiles in Australia than a midgie, I'm sure.
The advice from experts is if you want to stay out after the sun has gone in, then you'll need long sleeves and even longer trousers. And for any bits of you that are still exposed, well, slap on that repellent. Aileen Clark, reporting Scotland, Loch Lomond.
So here's the question, Gillian. Good weather to come for midges?
Well, it's turning a wee bit damper. That might...
Is that good?
Could be, yes. It could dampen things down a wee bit. Good evening to you. Today was good weather for midges. It was warm sunshine for most of us, but something different to come over the weekend. There will be some heavy and potentially thundery showers in the mix. Welcome rain for some, but it will bring some issues for others. This evening, still some showers hanging on over the West Highlands and Argyll. A few of those have been on the heavy side. They will ease overnight. Most places will be dry. Clear skies down towards the southwest, but quite a lot of cloud spilling in from the east coast, and it will be a relatively mild night, 9 to 12 Celsius for most of us. So we'll start tomorrow on a cloudy note for the most part, but we'll see that cloud thinning and breaking. Some spells of sunshine will get going. We'll have showers in the west from the word go, and as we go through the day, those showers will develop more widely and they will become heavy with a risk of thunder as well. And the Met Office has issued a yellow be aware warning for heavy rain, including thundery showers. That warning runs from midday onwards and it covers most of the country. So if we take a closer look around 4 o'clock, there will be some warm sunshine on offer, lifting temperatures to 21 Celsius for Dumfries and Galloway, Ayrshire. A cooler feel around the east coast with some mist and low cloud at times, and certainly a cooler feel. Temperatures will plummet in those showers, which where you catch one, it will be heavy. It could bring some hail and thunder, and very little wind tomorrow, so it will be slow moving as well. Some dry conditions for the far north and the Northern Isles, but with a lot of cloud around. So if you're thinking of heading to the hills tomorrow, there'll be some good spells of sunshine, fairly light winds and highs of 12 or 13 Celsius at the tops. But across all the ranges, there will be that threat of heavy and potentially thundery showers, something to bear in mind. And something to bear in mind too if you're heading out tomorrow evening, because those showers will last into the evening. Still some heavy ones to come for the first part of the night, though some late sunshine to end the day as well. Looking ahead to Sunday, and high pressure still the dominating influence, but we'll start the day dry. Again, quite a lot of cloud around, and we'll see that process of it thinning and breaking to allow the sunshine to get going. Again, it will be warm, especially across west and southwest Scotland, 21 Celsius. But much like Saturday, we'll see those showers breaking out. Some of them will be heavy and they'll bring a risk of thunder. A similar story for Monday. There'll be some sunshine, there'll be a few showers, and then as we head into next week, especially midweek onwards, it's turning cooler and more unsettled. That's the forecast. Sally.
Thanks very much. More after the 10 o'clock news. Till then, goodbye.